I'm Riley Parker, 30 years old, and I've never been one to back down from a fight. Growing up in a small Ohio town, I learned early that respect isn't given, it's earned. My sister, Vanessa, never got that memo. She was always the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes.
Me?
I was the scrappy one, the girl who'd rather climb trees than wear dresses, the one who left home at 18 to chase a dream no one believed in. 10 years later, I'm a U.S. Marshal, tracking fugitives and serving justice. But to Vanessa and her snobby new in-laws, I'm just the sister who washes dishes. It started 6 months ago when Vanessa called me, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she'd perfected. "Riley, you have to come to my engagement party," she said. "The Hawthorns are dying to meet you." The Hawthorns, her fiancé Daniel's family, were old money, the kind of people who owned estates and talked about legacy like it was a personality trait. I didn't want to go, but Vanessa insisted, saying it'd mean so much to her. I should have known better. The party was at the Hawthorns' mansion, a sprawling marble monstrosity with chandeliers that probably cost more than my truck. I couldn't make it that night. Work had me chasing a fugitive across state lines, but I promised to visit the next family dinner. Vanessa didn't miss a beat. When I called to check in, she laughed. "Oh, Riley, don't worry. I told them you couldn't come because you were working your dishwashing shift at that diner." My blood ran cold. Dishwashing? I'd never washed a dish for a living in my life. I tried to correct her, but she brushed it off. "It's just easier to explain to them, you know? They wouldn't get your job." I let it slide, thinking it was just Vanessa being Vanessa, always needing to be the star. But then I heard from a mutual friend what she'd been saying behind my back. At the engagement party, she'd spun a whole story. How I was struggling, barely scraping by, too proud to ask for help. She painted me as a failure to make herself look better, the successful sister who'd made it by snagging Daniel Hawthorne. The Hawthorns lapped it up, nodding sympathetically while sipping their champagne, whispering about poor Riley, who couldn't even afford a decent dress. I was livid, but I didn't confront her. Not yet. I've learned in my line of work that timing is everything. Vanessa wanted to play this game? Fine. I'd play too. But I'd play to win. I started digging. Vanessa wasn't as perfect as she seemed. She'd always been reckless with money, but now, engaged to Daniel, she was hiding something bigger. I called in a favor with a buddy in financial crimes. Turns out, Vanessa had been siphoning money from Daniel's trust fund, funneling it into offshore accounts. She wasn't just lying about me. She was betraying the man she claimed to love and the family she was desperate to impress. The evidence was ironclad: bank records, emails, even a shady crypto wallet she thought was untraceable. I could have sent the file to Daniel and called it a day, but that wasn't enough. Vanessa needed to feel the weight of her lies, just like I had. The Hawthorns were hosting a big family dinner in 2 weeks to celebrate Daniel's promotion to CEO of their company. Everyone would be there: Daniel's parents, his snooty aunts, even a few business partners. It was the perfect stage. I RSVP'd to the dinner, telling Vanessa I'd be there. No excuses. She sounded nervous, but didn't push back. I could almost hear her smirking through the phone, probably thinking she'd get another chance to parade her pathetic sister in front of her rich in-laws. Little did she know I was already planning my entrance. The weeks leading up to the dinner were a blur of preparation. My job as a U.S. Marshal taught me how to stay calm under pressure, how to read people, and how to strike when the moment's right. I wasn't just going to show up and call Vanessa out. I was going to dismantle her carefully crafted facade in front of everyone who mattered to her. First, I polished my uniform. The U.S. Marshal Service badge gleamed like a promise of truth. I'd worn it through high-stakes raids, fugitive hunts, and courtroom standoffs. Now, it would be my weapon in a different kind of battle. I also prepared a dossier, hard copies of Vanessa's financial misdeeds, neatly organized in a leather folder. I didn't plan to hand it out like party favors, but I wanted it ready, just in case. I reached out to Daniel privately, not to tip my hand, but to gauge his loyalty to Vanessa. We met for coffee at a dive bar far from the Hawthorns' world of caviar and cufflinks. He was nice enough, but clueless, gushing about how Vanessa was his rock. I didn't tell him the truth, not yet. Instead, I asked about the dinner, playing the curious sister. He mentioned the guest list: his parents, Margaret and Charles, who thought they were American royalty, his Aunt Evelyn, a gossip with a sharp tongue, and a couple of board members from Hawthorne Enterprises. Perfect. The bigger the audience, the better. Back at my apartment, I practiced my delivery. I wasn't going to scream or cry, that wasn't my style. I'd be calm, controlled, lethal. I imagined Vanessa's face when I walked in, her lies crumbling like cheap plaster. I pictured the Hawthorns' jaws dropping, their smug assumptions about me shattering. Every night, I fell asleep visualizing that moment, the one where Vanessa realized she'd underestimated me. The day of the dinner arrived, and I drove to the Hawthorns' estate with my uniform pressed and my dossier tucked into my bag. My heart pounded, not from nerves, but from anticipation. I'd spent years chasing criminals who thought they were untouchable. Vanessa was no different. She just wore designer heels instead of handcuffs. I parked a block away, not wanting to tip anyone off with my government-issued SUV. As I walked toward the mansion, I could hear the faint hum of laughter and clinking glasses. The air smelled of wealth, manicured lawns, imported wine, and privilege. I adjusted my badge, took a deep breath, and rang the doorbell. Vanessa answered, her smile faltering when she saw me. "Riley? You're early." Her eyes flicked to my outfit, but I'd thrown a coat over my uniform to keep the surprise. "Come in," she said, recovering quickly. "Everyone's in the dining room." I followed her through the foyer, my boots silent on the marble floor. The dining room was a spectacle, a long mahogany table set with crystal and silver, the Hawthorns and their guests dressed like they were auditioning for a royal court. Margaret, Daniel's mother, gave me a pitying smile. "You must be Riley," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Vanessa told us about your situation." I smiled back, polite but cold. "Oh, I'm sure she did." Vanessa, standing next to Daniel, chimed in, her laugh forced. "Riley's been working so hard at the diner. Tell them, Riley, about your dishwashing shifts." The room chuckled, and I felt the sting of their judgment. Aunt Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Is it true you work double shifts just to make ends meet?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I shrugged off my coat, letting it fall to the floor. The room went silent as my U.S. Marshal's uniform came into view. Dark jacket, polished badge, the unmistakable authority of someone who doesn't scrub dishes for a living. Margaret's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Charles's fork clattered onto his plate. Vanessa's face turned ashen. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "I don't wash dishes. I'm a U.S. Marshal. I hunt fugitives, protect federal witnesses, and, occasionally, uncover fraud." I looked straight at Vanessa, whose smile had vanished. Like the kind my sister's been committing. The dining room felt like a courtroom, every eye on me. I stood tall, my badge catching the chandelier's light, while Vanessa gripped the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Daniel looked confused, glancing between us. "Riley, what's going on?" he asked. I pulled the dossier from my bag and set it on the table, the leather folder landing with a soft thud. "Vanessa's been lying to you all," I said. "Not just about me, but about your money, Daniel. She's been stealing from your trust fund, funneling it into offshore accounts. I have the proof, bank records, emails, transactions. She thought she could hide it, just like she hid who I really am." Vanessa laughed, but it was shrill, desperate. "This is ridiculous. Riley, you're embarrassing yourself. Tell them, Daniel, she's just jealous." But Daniel wasn't smiling. He reached for the dossier, flipping through the pages. His face darkened as he saw the evidence: dates, amounts, account numbers. The room was so quiet I could hear Aunt Evelyn's sharp intake of breath. "Vanessa," Daniel said, his voice low, "is this true?" She stammered, her charm crumbling. It's not what it looks like. I was just managing things." But the lies didn't stick. Charles snatched the dossier, his eyes scanning the pages. Margaret's pitying look was gone, replaced by icy fury. "You thought you could deceive us?" she hissed. I didn't need to say much more. The hawthorns were sharks, and Vanessa was bleeding in the water. Daniel stood, his chair scraping the floor. "The engagement's off," he said, his voice flat. "You're done here." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no pity. She'd built this house of lies, and now it was collapsing. I turned to leave, but not before looking at Margaret. "Next time, don't believe everything you hear about someone's situation." She flushed, and Aunt Evelyn had the decency to look ashamed. As I walked out, I heard Vanessa sobbing, begging Daniel to listen. But I knew he wouldn't. Neither would the Hawthorns. They valued their reputation too much to let a thief into their family. The fallout was swift. By the next morning, Vanessa's name was trending on local gossip sites, the story of her fraud spreading like wildfire. Daniel's lawyers froze her accounts, and whispers of criminal charges followed. I didn't stick around to watch. I had a fugitive to track in Colorado. But I sent Vanessa one last text. "You underestimated me. Big mistake." As I drove away from the Hawthorns' estate, the weight of years of her lies lifted. I wasn't just Riley, the overlooked sister. I was a U.S. Marshal, a woman who'd fought for every inch of respect I'd earned. Vanessa thought she could bury me in her stories, but I'd rewritten the ending. On Revenge Lane, lies don't last forever. Sometimes, justice walks in wearing a badge. What would you do if someone tried to rewrite your story? Share below, and subscribe for more tales where truth gets the last word.